welcome once again to the Sal Santori Show. And on this week's show, we have the great pleasure of visiting with Colonel Doug Etter, who, in addition to serving as the Public Relations Director of the VA in Lebanon, is also chaplain for the National Guard. We'll also hear a song each by my great friends, Mr. Pat Garrett and his lovely wife, Miss Susie Dalton. And Susie is celebrating a birthday this week, so we have to reach out and wish her a great happy birthday. Senator Doug Mastriano is spearheading the Senate committee investigating the disaster in East Palestine, Ohio, which shares the border with Pennsylvania. And we anticipate visiting with Senator Mastriano in the upcoming weeks. Enjoy the show.
I'm coming home.
When you say you support the troops, do you mean it? Hi, this is Lou Diamond Phillips for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Every day, more service members are coming home from combat. In many cases, they return to no job, no money, and a lifetime of stress. That's where the VFW steps in, providing emergency financial support with their Unmet Needs program. For over 100 years, no one has done more for veterans than the VFW.
Please help us help them by calling 1-855-9-HELP-VET.
Welcome once again to another live show with Sal Santori. And today our guest happens to be my great friend, Colonel Doug Etter, who is the Public Relations Director here at the Lebanon VA. Doug and I have quite a nice long history. Without further ado, I'll introduce Doug. Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I am well, Sal. Thank you. It is great to see you. It has been quite a while because of COVID that we haven't been able to have this one-on-one FaceTime, but it's good to share this FaceTime with you now and talk about veterans, because I know as both of us are Army veterans, we are very passionate about our brothers and sisters.
We are. We've shared that, and I think probably our initial conversation was probably about 8 years ago.
I think it is. We do have a long history, as you have said, and have talked a lot about veterans and VA and things that their families can do, the families of veterans can do to help them. And so I'm glad to be one of your guests again.
Well, thank you. And just to kind of give folks an idea of who Colonel Etter is, the first time we talked, you had mentioned about your family in a military sense has been part of the military all the way back to the Revolutionary War,
yes,
if I'm correct. Yes,
and before. My mother's family moved here in 1635. They moved to what is now Spring Township in Mechanicsburg, Silver Spring Township, I'm sorry. They lived next door to James Silver. So we trace our family roots to 3 different families, the McCormicks, the Hogues, and the Walkers. And so they've been farming and living here in South Central Pennsylvania for many, many years. So when I was a kid growing up, I thought that all families had people in the military, and then after my first deployment to Iraq, I found out that maybe that wasn't always necessarily true.
I know you were also a military chaplain, I believe, for the National Guard?
Yes.
Okay. And what brings you, I know the results of what you do, and we'll get to that, but what brings you to the Public Relations Directorship presently?
After I returned from my first deployment to Iraq, I worked as the executive officer, the XO, at the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs for the state of Pennsylvania. I had a lot of interaction with personnel from the VISN, that is the VA's Veteran Integrated Service Network, and a lot of interaction with Mr. Callahan, who is the director here. And one time after one of the meetings, he asked me if I would be interested in having a further discussion with him about working as a public affairs officer. I had worked with public affairs officers in the military. I'm not a trained public affairs officer, but he said, well, at least I know as a chaplain you'll always tell the truth, and that's something I want. And so Mr. Callahan and I had a conversation, and I went through some interviews here with different personnel, and ended up getting the job. And I've been here then since 2011, and I love working here. I'm very happy here. I'm very proud of the Lebanon VA. We do good work the last 2 years in a row. So in 21 and 20, which VA is always a little bit behind in measuring statistics, but Lebanon was named the best VA in the United States for patient experience and employee experience. There are 170 medical centers in the nation, and so to be named the top one is very gratifying, and I certainly understand why. I know how much I enjoy working here, as I said, and as a patient here as well, I believe I get great care. So many of my military friends come here as patients as well, and they are very happy with the care that they get. So it's a great place to live and to receive care. So we're very grateful to the veterans who choose VA as their health care provider.
That's probably the greatest testament to the VA here in Lebanon are the troops, the veterans that have come and received treatment here. And I've talked to many and have not gotten a complaint other than perhaps I wasn't seen as quickly as I wanted to be, which meant 10 minutes difference. But as far as treatment and care, top notch.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yeah.
We're very, very fortunate to be in an area here in South Central Pennsylvania with the people that are kind and warm and professional, who have a strong sense of work ethic and a strong sense of moral ethic to do the right thing. And so we promote what we call a just culture, that our staff will always be doing what is in the veteran's best interest, always doing what's right for the veteran at the right time for the veteran. So we're very proud of that.
That is huge. Kind of like a motto, do the right thing.
Yes.
You know, so simple, but yet it means so much in so many areas.
Yeah, so we're the first VA of those 170 VA medical centers in the United States, for example, that started a high reliability organization. We call it an HRO department. VA is moving into the world of HRO, that is, organizations that are very complex, making sure that they are not erring and always doing what is right. And we created our own department to make sure that that is correct, and that we are striving to move forward all the time.
Now, did you mention how long this has been in existence, the department?
The department's only been in existence within the past year.
Okay.
Now, of course, VA, at least Lebanon VA Medical Center, has been in existence for just a hair over 75 years. On September the 15th of last year, 2022, we celebrated our 75th anniversary. So we opened our doors on September the 15th, 1947, and had our first patient at that time, and have been serving the veterans of South Central Pennsylvania for 75 years. So we actually called a book that we wrote about the last 15 years, because we already had a book about the first 60 years, Moving Forward, because
Okay.
we are always moving forward.
Is that available for listeners to try and find?
There was a limited printing, and so all of those editions that were printed have been shared with veterans and their families. Whether or not there's a second printing, I don't know. We'll see.
It sounds like it would be an interesting read. One of the things we talked about in the past is the cutting-edge technology, research, and information that's available here in the VA. I know the Lebanon VA is a leader, I believe 5-star, if I'm not mistaken, a 5-star VA hospital.
Well, Lebanon, like all of our medical centers, is connected to a teaching hospital and a medical school. So for us, that would be the Penn State School of Medicine located in Dauphin County. We have physicians regularly rotating through here, medical students, nursing students, physician assistant students. Actually, we have academic affiliations with over 200 different schools, colleges, and universities, trade schools, technology schools, because it takes a large group of people to provide the quality of care that we do, all the way from your EMS employees for us, that is what they're called, but environmental management service folks who are cleaning and taking care of everything. That helps reduce infection, to our world-class physicians, again, and everyone in between, all the nurses, all the medical support assistants, the secretaries, the folks who produce the meals. We are very, very fortunate to have such quality employees.
That really sounds setting aside of the VA hospital. Like, really sets it apart.
Yeah, so when you mention technology, let me just mention a couple of things that are recent additions since you and I last saw one another. We just dedicated our education building. The building existed prior, but it had a complete remodel. And the interesting thing is the technological upgrades in the building. We now have these state-of-the-art screens that are as large as a human being, that instead of, for example, someone having to do an actual autopsy, you can see the human anatomy, whatever parts of it you want, all through this screen. We have a new simulation laboratory there where the mannequins actually breathe, they can speak, you can feel their pulse. They have a wide variety of responses that the controllers can program through the computer, as we are educating and testing staff to make sure that they're on top of things. The other neat innovation that we received during COVID was the Da Vinci computer, the Da Vinci robot. The Da Vinci robot is a surgical robot, so it does not do surgery by itself. Sometimes people think when they hear the word robot that that's what it happens. Right. It only moves when a physician moves its arms, and it has multiple arms. But it allows the physicians to make such small incisions and do things in a manner that reduces patients' pain and reduces their recovery time. And we're using that in a wide variety of services, whether that's gynecology or urology, general surgery. The Da Vinci robot is something that we're very proud of. We're very proud of our surgical suite that we have, but the Da Vinci robot is really taking advances in surgery further for us.
Wow, that's really interesting. Let me just digress for a second, but we mentioned a machine as large as a person that was able to forego autopsy. Is that
right? If you're trying to teach a medical student, they will of course do autopsies, but this screen, and maybe it would be easiest for me to show it to you because it's so hard to describe on the radio, but you would think of a very long, large television screen, computer screen, that can be either horizontal or vertical or anywhere in between. And if you want to see all the circulation, for example, that takes place in the human body, it will show you that. If you just want to see the arteries instead of the veins, it will show you that. You can look at the skeleton. The computer model allows you to view things from a 360-degree viewpoint. So if you want to turn it around, you're looking at the front of the heart and you want to see the back of the heart, you can actually do that, and the machine will allow you to see that. It allows you to see all the organs. It's really fascinating to be able to do.
You may have already answered this question, but is this like, obviously it's a teaching tool. Will this also reduce the need for a certain type of autopsy itself?
Well, not for patients. Autopsies are used for a variety of different reasons, so the autopsies will continue to be used. We don't perform autopsies here, but the autopsies will be used. This is more a teaching tool that instead of needing to have a human cadaver on the location, we have this machine, which is fantastic.
Incredible. I thank you so much for your time, Doug. We're like barely even scratching the surface of the new things coming up, and I know you're extremely busy. I will get back in contact with you to pick up this conversation.
Okay.
And this is Sal Santori visiting once again with our good friend, Colonel Doug Etter, Public Relations Director, over here at the Lebanon VA. Doug, thank you very much, and I can't wait to visit with you again.
Thank you, Sal.
You bet.
Take care, my friend.
Okay.
Well, most people love my old friend Willie Nelson. His songs are always on my mind. Some folks think he's crazy for living that nightlife, but the next day he'll be on the road again. All the girls he's loved before still love him, even as their blue eyes are crying in the rain. 7 Spanish angels fly above him, 'cause he's flying too close to the ground again. So let's all fire one up for our friend Willie. Sail on down that Whiskey River today, and we'll stay all night, stay a little longer. Ain't it funny how time slips away? His mama let him grow up to be a cowboy. He rode with Pancho and Lefty, I was told. One day I sang that song on stage there with him. Wish I could go along out on the road. Now Willie's songs will live forever, and his memory will linger on and on. So I want to honor one of Willie's last requests. So let's roll him up and smoke him when he's gone. Oh, let's all fire one up for our friend Willie. Sail on down that Whiskey River today, and we'll stay all night, stay a little longer. Ain't it funny how time slips away? Ain't it funny how time slips away?
Ticking of time in the long, lonely night. My blues get deeper with the new morning light. My sorrow won't free me since you slipped away, and the hurting cuts deeper with each passing day. Now it's raining in my eyes, cried by myself all day. Your words to me were a lie, and now it's raining in my eyes. it's raining in my eyes. Your words to me were all lies, and now it's raining in my
Unfortunately, we had to end our interview prematurely. You may have heard the beeping in the background of Colonel Etter getting notifications. But I'd like to follow up with a short description of the Da Vinci surgical robot system. We mentioned that during the show. In fact, I was quite blown away to hear about that. I guess in my sheltered world, I wasn't privy to that information yet. I almost graduated medical school, but then they offered me a job in radio, and I said, let's do it, man. Imagine that, right? They say I have a great face for radio, so it keeps me from considering any kind of TV action. So anyway, first hearing about this, this Da Vinci surgical robotic system, of course, I had a very different picture in my mind from how this really works. And I think the best way I can describe this is that it is actually an extension and multiplier of the surgeon's hands. Usually the way a surgeon operates is, standing very near the patient and using long-shafted instruments that won't bend or rotate. And it also requires the surgeon to look up and away from the instruments into a 2D video monitor. The surgeon also relies on their patient side assistant to properly position the camera. And due to ergonomic, new words here, we don't say these on radio every day. Ergonomic, let me practice that. Ergonomic, okay, I think we got it. Due to the ergonomic design of the Da Vinci system, the surgeon is now able to operate from a comfortable seated position at the console. How revolutionary. And he can then keep his eyes and hands positioned in line with the instruments, no more looking away. To move the instruments of surgery and reposition the camera, the surgeon simply moves their hands. The arms of the device perform the work guided by the surgeon's hands, and this provides an even more precise incision and provides for more minimally invasive procedures involving complex and delicate dissection or reconstruction. So basically, there it is. The precision of the incisions makes the surgery procedure much more exact, which means less tissue to heal. In turn, that will mean shorter recovery time. So we're able to help the surgeon be far more precise. And this isn't taking anything away from our surgeons without using the Da Vinci robotics system. But this is a bit of technology that is really cutting edge and making quite a difference. If it's going to lead to, for a patient, if it's going to lead to better, faster recovery times with less to heal, which obviously then does provide a shorter recovery time, I think that's a great accomplishment. And to continue the topic of recovery time, I'd like to now offer my commentary in closing. This is something that really weighs heavily on my heart. Recovering from the effects of the 3-year reign of the pandemic. It's a very real issue. And we can see this in our children as the most obvious spiritual need. We also have family issues. Families have been devastated by loss of income, loss of housing, loss of food security, and just plain loss of security. And that's unlike anything we've had in previous generations, obviously post-1929. And the pink elephant in the room, I would have to say, would be, how do we recover? Okay, how do we do it? What do we do? And I'm convinced that one of the biggest devastations has been disconnection, especially in communication. I'm talking about the person-to-person method. A lot of us can remember the old person-to-person collect calls. I get the operator and I'd like to place a person-to-person collect call, please. We didn't do that by texting. We actually spoke to one another. Even better, we did things actually live and in person with one another. Kids played adolescents interacted. They interrupted occasionally too. And as adults, we got together. You know, our spirits were full and alive. We enjoyed physical connection, joyful most times, and stress-relieving connections. So I'm thinking we as a whole need to reconnect with our world, reconnecting for solutions to the devastation that was brought on by the pandemic. Reach out for answers to the family issues and the family losses. Here at the show and the K-Zern Community and Veterans Outreach, we can provide connections for food, shelter, medical care, veterans benefits, and we'll find answers to whatever help is needed. We also need to help our children reconnect. Many of our kids have replaced live in-person connections with devices. Unfortunately, school closings, along with the lockdowns, have impacted our children's reconnecting with the terrestrial world the hardest. Many of our children have replaced live in-person connections with devices. Unfortunately, school closings, along with the lockdowns, have impacted our youngest the hardest. We as adults and parents, we have the task to help our kids reconnect with the terrestrial world and reconnect with each other. The pandemic opened the door and presented virtual as the alternative to life in the pandemic style. I encourage us all to reconnect with each other and bring our pieces of the world together live and in person. As always, please find someone to help. Contact us here by email, sal@wmrcstudios.com. Call me directly, 717-455-7086. The crisis hotline, 877-424-3838. And here's a family crisis intervention number, and that is 800-273-8255. The worst thing any of us can do is not reach out, not reconnect. So I ask all of us to definitely find ways to begin to reconnect. Let's get our kids working on reconnecting, and absolutely reach out to us here at the studio for anything, any questions, any needs you have. If we don't have the answer, we will find it. You will not be left in the dark. Thank you for listening to our show. Your comments and feedback are always welcome. As we close out now with the national anthem.